This episode of the Commercial Real Estate Investor Podcast is brought to you by my CRE Accelerator Mastermind, where you'll get access to my step-by-step investment blueprint, essentially a library of resources on how to invest in commercial real estate. You'll get connected to a supportive community of other commercial real estate investors that are doing projects just like you. You'll get personalized coaching and feedback from me every step of the way. Go to www.crecentral.com to learn more. Welcome back to the Commercial Real Estate Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Cobble, and we are live from the Cobble Group Studios here in Nashville, Tennessee, back for another round of office hours. Excited to be with you all this morning, diving into your questions around commercial real estate. Office hours is a time for you to jump in and ask your questions. I get a lot of questions either via email or via Instagram, and I always tell you guys, hey, if you've got questions on a specific deal or something that you are working on in commercial real estate and you want my opinion, jump into my YouTube live streams Tuesdays, 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Happy to jump in and answer those questions. Vicken is saying, good morning, Tyler. Good morning, Vicken. Happy to hear from you. Thank you for being here. Gosh, it has been a hell of a week. I am coming in hot. I didn't even have time to prepare this morning for a little update of what I have been up to this past week because I literally just jumped out of a meeting. Fortunately, I do have an article for us to be jumping into from Reddit, which I think you guys are going to find pretty interesting. Came out 6 days ago in our commercial real estate. Are we headed into a full-blown recession? Commercial real estate prices guidance. I think it's going to be a pretty interesting discussion because are we headed into a full-blown commercial real estate recession? I don't know. Who knows? It's going to be interesting to get everybody's thoughts on that for sure. This past week has been very interesting, to say the least. I have been dealing with an issue, and I actually shared this with the Accelerator Mastermind last night in a little experience share. I had a contractor that that we had signed an agreement with, and I've been doing this for 12 years. I've never seen this happen. I had a contractor we had an agreement with, scope of work, everything agreed upon, for $166,000 to do a job for us. I'm not going to say specifically what it was because we're probably headed into arbitration or something. They get out there, they do the job. 3 days before the end of it, they send us a change order for $50,000. And I said, well, I'm not going to sign off on a change order for $50,000 3 days before the job is over. I'm not agreeing to that. Well, we already did the work. You need to go ahead and sign it. Heads up, guys, if anybody ever sends you a change order and says, hey, we already did the work, you need to sign this, that is not how that works. If they want to do extra work, they need to send you the change order. You need to mutually agree upon it. You need to execute that and agree to pay the extra money. The guy that did that, the project manager, supposedly got fired. I don't know. And then one of the executives from that company stepped in to handle this deal. He said, let me do a full accounting to make sure that we actually fully understand what we're working on here. He sends me a full accounting for $102,000 additional expenses on what they did. Keep in mind, $102,000 over on a $166,000 construction job. 70% over budget. I said, no, I'm not paying that. That is on you guys. If y'all wanted to go and, do a whole bunch of extra work, we appreciate it. Obviously, it's going to benefit us, but that was not in the budget. That was not in the original scope of work, nor would I have agreed to it had you presented that to us. I have a problem with the way that a lot of contractors conduct their business. This is not the first time that somebody has tried to do this to us, and I'm not the only person that this has ever happened to in the commercial real estate industry. There are plenty of contractors out there that are incredible, above-board people. I work with a lot of them. I'm friends with a lot of them. But there are also a lot of contractors out there who will get into a job and then slowly, we went over a budget on this, or you've got to pay more for this, or this, that, and the other. This is just a very egregious example of it, where they went 70% over budget. But it happens. It happens all the time. So I will keep you guys posted on how that goes. It's been interesting. I've never had to deal with that before. Somebody going $100,000 over budget on a $166,000 job. Pretty wild. In other news, we have our next CRE Accelerator Mastermind meetup get together here in Nashville. in 30 days. I can't believe it's 30 days away now. Pretty excited for that. So we are going to be doing a full deal analysis and underwriting, like 2-day workshop, which I'm pretty excited for. So we actually decided to combine the Accelerator members and the Brokers Mastermind members for this meetup, which will be pretty cool. It's the first time we've ever combined both masterminds into one meetup. We're going to have like a deal pitch session on Friday night over cocktails and happy hour. And then Saturday is just going to be all teaching. And Logan Freeman, who's my partner in the Brokers Mastermind, he's going to come in and he and I are going to alternate between sessions. And it's pretty cool. I think we've got 8 full lessons that we're going to be teaching on how to analyze and underwrite commercial real estate deals. So it's going to be a really neat summit. And then on Sunday, we're actually going to go and tour one of my properties. I'm going to give everybody the information on that property, and then they're going to break out into groups and underwrite it. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a pretty cool little deal. So looking forward to that. We've got that going on. So jump in, ask your questions, whatever you guys have. We want to hear it. And while we're waiting on that, I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Are we headed to a full-blown recession? Let's see. Here's the paragraph. Lacey Hunt, who is a well-respected fund manager, used to work at the Fed, just published a paper. The gist is that he warns of a confluence of 5 major forces: tariffs, restrictive monetary policy, fiscal tightening, excessive federal debt, and declining immigration that are collectively suppressing U.S. economic growth through 2025 and potentially into 2026. The authors argue that tariffs are historically exacerbating the downturn. Fiscal stimulus from prior years has faded, and new tax cuts won't take effect until 2026. Federal debt has reached levels that diminish economic returns, and a sharp drop in immigration is removing a key source of labor force growth. Together, these factors suggest a high risk of recession and a prolonged, uneven recovery, likely leading to lower long-term treasury yields as growth and inflation weaken. This has been interesting because all of this, like, we're starting to see it in Nashville. Nashville is a market that is very heavily driven by tourism, and we used to see a lot of Canadian tourists. We're not seeing a lot of Canadian tourists in Nashville anymore. Like, not just anecdotally, like it is in the data. Canadians are no longer traveling to Nashville as much right now, which hurts the economy, especially in an economy that is so tourism driven. That's really tough to deal with. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. The top comment, I love this. Just keep cold calling, bro. That is the right answer. I mean, look, I do agree with that. It doesn't matter if you're in commercial real estate, whether we are in a recession or we are in an up market, down market, sideways market. It doesn't matter if, retail is doing well or office is doing well or everything's doing poorly. Just keep cold calling. It's all going to come back at some point. I mean, it's pretty interesting to think about, how people react when the sky is supposedly falling. It's always falling. It's always going to be falling at some point. Just keep cold calling, bro. I like that. Party Cakes is saying, I'll bite. This was written roughly 1 month ago as a reasonable proxy for sentiment. The market is up 15% since then. The trade news changes daily, so this is all out of date. What do we know about tariffs? China was about to get hit with 145%. Now it's 30%. That's much better. Deal with UK was just announced. Saudi Arabia and Qatar just announced combined trade deals measured in trillions. Will all this be old news in 72 hours? Yes. So far, does it seem like some of this is good news? Yes. What will the Fed do? Who knows? 10-year is still sitting at 4.5%, roughly where it was last year. A lot has happened since then. Will Jerome cut rates? To be determined. Inflation reading just came down to 2021 levels. Is it possible it skyrockets over the next 3 months? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they'll cut, maybe they won't. I kind of like the way that this person wrote this, by the way. This is like very dramatic. Fiscal stimulus has faded. Yes. Net. That's probably good for our country, but it will hurt growth in the short term. Debt as a percent of GDP continues to skyrocket. It was 30% in the 80s, 60% in the 90s, and 2000s, 90% in 2010s, and it's 120% today. Does the budget need to be balanced? Absolutely. Will it? Probably not. Will this cause a recession in 25? Probably not. Are we doomed eventually? Probably yes. Immigration going down is generally a known net negative for growth. Fewer people means less spending. So that will hurt growth. But it could be a net good thing for the well-being of our nation. They don't really give any context to that, so I don't understand how that could be. What's all this mean for commercial real estate? No idea. As a broad asset class, could construction decrease because of higher rates and costs? Yes. Will that benefit existing assets because new supply is lower? Yes. Could industrial be hurt because of less trade? Yes. Could industrial benefit because of more domestic manufacturing? Yes. Okay, I want to note on that. I keep hearing so many people that are all for the tariffs. I'm against tariffs. We don't have to get political about it. I just don't believe that tariffs are necessarily a good thing. But the people that are for tariffs in my circles are saying, well, it's going to be good for domestic manufacturing. I'm 100% for domestic manufacturing. I think it'd be great to have domestic manufacturing. The problem is instituting tariffs to spark domestic manufacturing doesn't make any sense, right? You're basically punishing, you're taxing the American people in order to cause domestic manufacturing to happen. Will that happen? Sure. You'll have some companies that will decide, hey, it's actually going to be easier for us to manufacture stateside. The problem is it's still going to be probably more expensive than it will be if we were manufacturing overseas. And it's not going to happen overnight. I don't know when the last time you guys looked into building a manufacturing facility. It is an incredibly complicated and costly type of building to build and to fund. And do we need more of them? 100%. Don't get me wrong. I'm all on board for onshoring. I fully support it. I think it's a great idea. It's just not that black and white. It's not that easy as just saying, yeah, cool. Now let's bring it all back stateside. These everything is more complicated than it seems. Okay, back to it. Could retail be hurt because of less discretionary spending? Yes. Could retail benefit because people onshore some of their consumption patterns? Yes. Do they buy more from Target and less from Amazon because there are fewer low-cost sellers at Amazon? Yes. What is that? That doesn't even make any sense. Do they buy more from Target and less from Amazon? They both have a fair amount of goods from overseas, so I don't understand how that necessarily benefits. I mean, maybe they're just saying, do they buy more brick and mortar and less online? Could office be hurt because of a recession? Yes. Could office benefit because of recession since employers finally have the upper hand to get employees back into offices? Yes. Could the push back into office benefit retail because more people are on the roads and not at home? Yes. Could the push back into the office hurt retail because people aren't wasting their time buying things on the internet during working hours? Yes. Could multifamily be hurt because of a recession as more young people delay moving out or elect to pair up with a roommate? Yes. Could multifamily benefit because a recession means fewer people are buying houses and therefore they are forced to rent? Yes. No one knows what's going to happen. Watch the macro news with a grain of salt. Lower rates are better for all asset classes. Recessions can be good for some reasons and bad for others. Buy good assets, use debt appropriately. That I actually kind of like that take. Pretty interesting because, I mean, here's the thing. Nobody really knows, right? It could be good for some asset classes and bad for others. There's no real way of telling right now. We genuinely just have no clue. We've got a lot of comments coming in right now, and so I'm going to get over to these real quick. Let's see. Julian is saying, hey, what's good, man? Julian, how you doing, dude? Good to see you here. Bob is saying, what's the main difference between a commercial loan officer versus residential? Bob, I don't even know if commercial lenders are called commercial loan officers. That's a good question. They may be. I've just never heard that term used. Typically we just call them commercial lenders. I mean, the difference is, one focuses on commercial loans, and the other one focuses on residential. You typically will not see a commercial lender, somebody that does actual commercial loans, doing anything on the residential side. Julian is saying, do you think the tariffs are just Trump trying to keep U.S. dollars in the U.S.? It's not doing good now, but what about long term? They say there's more U.S. dollars outside of America. I don't know, Julian. I mean, I will be very honest with you. I'm not an economist. I don't know necessarily that keeping U.S. dollars in the U.S. is a good or a bad thing. I think that there's probably pros and cons for both. Either way, it's raising the cost of goods in America right now. All Shoulders is saying, good morning, Tyler. I'm a private lender that wants to develop flex space. I found your channel on a whim. This is great stuff and not fluff. Just wanted to say thanks. Oh, I appreciate that, All Shoulders. Thank you so much for jumping in. Glad you're enjoying the channel. All Shoulders is saying, at Bob Smith, the main difference is you want the specialist. If you are buying a gas station, find a broker that does petroleum. If you want a warehouse, get a warehouse specialist. Yeah, I think that's a great advice. If you're going for commercial lenders, not all commercial lenders are created equally. I think, maybe residential loan officers will kind of say the same thing. But I think it's far more nuanced in commercial real estate. There are commercial lenders that will specifically do ground up. There are commercial lenders that will specifically do, retail. Now they have buckets, right? And they can loan on everything else, but some are just better at different asset classes than others. Bob is saying, how many commercial loan officers versus residential? How many small commercial lending shops versus residential? There are far more residential loan officers than commercial. You just don't need as many commercial. He's saying tariffs are a distraction. A banker who specializes in loans to get gas stations. Thank you. There are tons of, let's see. Cool. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything in the comments there. All right, let's get back to it. This person's saying, good write-up. My 2 cents. Too many people react too quickly and too broadly based on short-term info, all based mostly on fear. Those with a position of less debt and not tied to short, midterm Fed rates will always do okay. I like that point. I mean, here's the thing. What's going on right now, is it chaotic? Absolutely. I mean, it is hard to keep your head on straight with the chaos that is going on in the headlines. But don't let that distract you from the fact that commercial real estate is a long-term investment, right? I mean, if you're trying to buy commercial real estate for the short term, I think that's incredibly risky. All of our assets, like on the shorter term, we're considering a 5-year horizon, right? So at least think about it on a 5-year period, if not longer, right? From that perspective, it really starts to change things and how you look at it. So don't make decisions today based on fear. Just write it out. I think you should probably wait a minute. Let's see here. I like that. Just keep calling, bro. My Magic 8 Ball said, reply hazy. Try again later. CRE prices are forward-looking, so the tax cuts being delayed isn't much of an issue. Rates being high due to absurdly high deficit spending will push prices down, but the deficit spending itself will push the other direction. Immigration restriction is unmitigated downside as it will reduce overall demand and productivity. People focus on the labor aspect, which is real but very secondary. The main issue is on the demand side, less of everything. I worry about the sustainability of our massive deficit and debt, but markets seem to have enormous appetite for American treasuries. It's the kind of thing that isn't a problem until it is a problem. Someone will be holding the bag when the music stops, and that will be a truly severe disruption, but hard to say if that will be in a year or in a decade. I agree. I mean, that to me is the most concerning aspect of all of this. Again, I don't know how that affects us because I'm not an economist, but the U.S. deficit continuing to grow and seemingly only getting larger and larger at some point is going to be a pretty major issue, right? So anyways, I saw that write-up. I figured you guys would appreciate it. I thought it was pretty interesting. So hope you guys enjoyed that. Would love to know, what are your thoughts? Are we headed into a full-blown recession? How will commercial real estate do? Let me know in the comments below. I think it'll make a pretty interesting conversation nonetheless. Femi is saying, what are the differences between retail flex, and flex buildings, particularly when developing from the ground up? Well, Femi, first of all, they're all very different types of buildings, right? I mean, retail is retail flex is retail flex, and flex is flex, right? So they're all very different types of buildings. In terms of like developing from the ground up, you're going to be building different types of buildings. So, retail is going to have a different level of finish. It's probably going to be in a different location than a retail flex would be. Like retail typically needs to be on high traffic corridors, high corners. Retail flex, not necessarily, right? So like if you're thinking retail, think of like Starbucks. If you're thinking of retail flex, think of like a flooring showroom, right? Like Starbucks has to be on a hard corner. A flooring showroom can be kind of off on a side street, right? And then a flex building, it can be, office warehouse. It can be retail warehouse. It doesn't really matter, but it can be, behind off on a side street. They don't need to be visible whatsoever. And so the level of finish going into each one is really going to make up the biggest difference between those because, and honestly, like that's where the biggest price difference is going to come from is the level of finish. The reason that flex is so much cheaper is because you're able to get away with a metal exterior and relatively unfinished warehouses, right? I mean, you might have to insulate it. You might, do some HVAC, but you'll probably do exposed ceilings, exposed walls. You're probably going to do exposed concrete. You're not going to have some super high-end finishes with, really nice bathrooms and, not something that a customer is going to have to come in and buy, right? It's not a dental office, So that's really the biggest differences there. Ricardo is saying, I've been around residential, Airbnb, short-term plays, now leaning into commercial with more intention. What mental shift do you think makes the biggest difference when stepping into this lane? Oh, that's a great question, Ricardo. I love that one. What is the biggest mental shift that it takes when stepping out of residential into commercial? I think, honestly, the biggest mental shift when moving, when making that transition is probably the scalability. Like, honestly, like and I mean that in the sense of like making it a professional business and treating it like a professional business. What I see a lot of residential investors, and not everybody, right? Some people scale their residential business and they treat it like a true business, right? You've got employees, you've got this, that, and the other. Most investors that are investing in residential real estate treat it like a hobby or, kind of like a side hustle, which means that if a tenant toilet breaks at midnight on a Friday and they're calling you, right? You're running over there and you're dealing with it, right? Whereas in commercial real estate, like it's much more professional. We work between 9 and 5. If you've got a problem after hours, you got to deal with it, or we'll be there the next day, or here's the after hours emergency services, right? I mean, we have all of those systems in place. It is very much treated like a business, or the tenants handle it themselves. And so having it like actually run like a business is pretty neat. So I don't handle things for my tenants necessarily, right? Like it depends on the situation, but there's just not that expectation of like, this needs to be taken care of immediately. Of course, it depends on the lease and all that kind of stuff. But I think that's the biggest mental shift is it is no longer 100% on your shoulders to take care of everything, nor should it be. If any deal that you are looking at does not financially sustain your hiring a property manager, paying for an attorney to negotiate the lease, paying for brokers to go out and find you tenants, it's not a deal. And I think that's what a lot of residential real estate investors moving into commercial real estate get wrong. They try and save a penny on these deals and say, well, I'm gonna lease it myself, or I'm gonna do the property management myself because I'll save X amount of money. If you have to save that much money on your deal and do it yourself, it's not a deal worth doing. That's the exact opposite reason of why we get into buying all of these properties, right? You're buying real estate to generate the passive income and give yourself the time freedom so that you can go and be with your family, or you can go and travel wherever you want, or you can disappear for 30 days, right? Not so that you can just buy yourself another job. And so I think that that's one thing that I like, especially in the Accelerator Mastermind, the residential real estate investors that have been doing it for a while, that's generally what I'm having to work with them on is like, hey, it's okay. We can treat this like a true professional investment now. And it's really cool seeing that click for them because, dude, it changes everything. It's really, really neat. That was a great question. Thank you. Vicken is saying, Tyler, hi, what commercial property app is best that you recommend? Guys, the best app that I use like almost every day is called Landglide, Landglide. It's awesome. I don't know if you can see that, but basically like I can pull up, it's like a GIS map on my phone, and I can pull up, like I'll pull up my property right now. You guys can see, if you can see that on the camera right now, if it'll focus, maybe it won't. Yeah, you can see right there. Like it's pulling up the property lines. It's pulling up the owner. It's got the address, right? And then I can actually go in there and pull up the county records and go straight to, whoever the owner is, whatever. And so I use that app all the time. I'm like, who owns this property? How big is it? Where, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's honestly like one of the best apps ever. So Landglide, I think it's like $100 or $120 a year. I don't even know. That is how great of a deal it is. Matthew is saying, Tyler, have you used any SBA 7A or 504 loan products? Matthew, I have not personally. I have worked with a lot of clients on the brokerage side that have. I am always recommending against it if you can avoid it, simply because the interest rates are higher, like substantially higher than you could get from a local lender. And the process, dude, they're doing like FBI level background checks. I mean, it is incredibly invasive and it just takes forever. That being said, if you only want to put down 10% and sometimes maybe less, they can be great options. So they can be good. They can be very good. They're very tough sometimes. So I try to avoid them. Like, so that's why I personally have never done one. I've seen the pain my clients have gone through. Julian is saying, all shoulders, what questions do you think I should know to ask my broker to see if they are actually good at what they do, looking to buy a business? Thanks. That's a good question, Julian. So if you're talking to a business broker and you want to know what questions you should ask in terms of making sure that they actually understand what they're doing, dude, honestly, like I've had a lot of bad experiences with business brokers, and I know a lot of people that buy businesses that have had a lot of bad experiences with business brokers. And I don't know what it is, but a lot of them don't pay any attention to what they're doing. They either don't review the financials, they don't look at the documents, and they don't really know much about these deals. They just collect everything, put it into a file, and then they collect 10% commissions on these sales. It's crazy to me. I've thought about starting to offer business brokerage services under the Cobble Group because there is, one, such a massive marketplace for it, but two, the level of service and customer care and knowledge that we could bring to that space for the 10% commissions that they charge compared to the competition would just, there wouldn't be any competition. But, I keep telling myself, like, you've got enough on your plate. Like, we don't have to, just because we see a problem doesn't mean that we have to solve it. That's also what my girlfriend tells me all the time. So, anyways, I would ask them, like, have you ever bought and sold a business? And if not, why? I think that's a pretty good question to ask a business broker, because it's the same for commercial real estate. Like, have you ever bought and sold commercial real estate? Why? If you're working with a commercial real estate broker that's helping you buy commercial properties and they've never bought a commercial property, they don't understand the full process. So why work with them? That's genuinely how I feel. Oh, let's see. All Shoulders is saying, Tyler, for Flex, how do you prefer for new to do? Do you prefer to do new builds or renovate a current property to your goal? I live in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida, so the luxury flex is almost a requirement. We need to hear bad. All Shoulders, that's a good question. Today, with where prices are, it is incredibly difficult to build flex space from the ground up. It just is. It just is. That being said, if you can go and buy a building for relatively cheap and bring it back as flex space, that is what I am looking at all day. highly recommend doing, some sort of micro conversion. And when I say micro, that doesn't mean like bring back micro spaces. I just mean like do some sort of small value add. Buy a 10,000 square foot building and just throw up 5 walls, and create 6 spaces, or 4 walls and create 5, whatever, right? So that, you can just turn one big building into something smaller and generate a whole bunch of tenant demand from there, right? So that's what I'm doing today. That's what I'm liking. That's what we're about to do a whole bunch of out at Peerless Mill. I mean, we're about to go and build out a bunch of like 1,000 to 2,500 square foot little bays inside these suites, inside these buildings, because we've got plenty of suites. We've got plenty of space out there. And we might as well start taking advantage of that. And so that's what I would do. So there you have it. If you're wanting to do flex space today, I think I would hold off on building ground up unless you just really got a great deal on it. The problem is construction costs are too high and interest rates are too high, in my opinion, to really make it make sense for where, to make the numbers make sense, unless you can get rental rates that justify it. And so that's the balance that you have to strike, right? Every market is different. Every deal is different. Thank you guys for tuning in today. This was a great conversation. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, don't forget to rate and review. We appreciate that. I do go out and read all of them. It sincerely means a lot to me. And it helps get this podcast out there to more and more people that need to be saved from the residential real estate grind. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you're thinking about the show. We'll see you guys in the next one, Tuesdays, 8:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. We'll see you then. This episode of the Commercial Real Estate Investor Podcast is brought to you by my CRE Accelerator Mastermind, where you'll get access to my step-by-step investment blueprint, essentially a library of resources on how to invest in commercial real estate. You'll get connected to a supportive community of other commercial real estate investors that are doing projects just like you. You'll get personalized coaching and feedback from me every step of the way. Go to www.crecentral.com to learn more.